Hi guys, it's Luetin here, and welcome back for a bit more Battlefield Roundtable. Kind of small. Is it a table? I don't know. Is this
Looks
enough,
like a table.
Is this enough people to qualify as a table? I don't know. Okay, joined today. I've got Daskro and I got JackFrags, and then I got me, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Battlefield 4. There's a lot of changes that have been happening, obviously, with Battlefield 4. Some are small, some are not so small. Some are going to have a bigger impact than others. And I think today we want to talk a little bit around some of those changes. And obviously, Daskro and JackFrags were both at the E3 event. They got to play on Battlefield 4. So they're going to have a significantly, what would be the word? A more in-depth opinion, let's say that, than perhaps a lot of commentators out there. But I mean, I think one of the first things I want to mention is actually a weapon-specific thing. Me and Daskro were talking about a moment ago. And that's actually the grenade launcher. Now, Daskro, you've used this in-game. How did you find it? I mean, I think people are kind of naturally afraid of anything launcher-based in games, especially when it comes to infantry grenade equipment. I think there's many reasons for that. But, you know, tell us about your experience with that. Do you feel it's kind of a bit too powerful, or is it sort of, you know, has it changed much from the sort of weapons that we've had with Battlefield 3 with launching weapons?
Well, there's two different grenade launchers that are in Battlefield 4 that I've played with. You have the M320, which works just like you have in Battlefield 3. And you also have the XM25, which is sort of a pseudo-grenade launcher. It's a semi-automatic rifle that launches grenades. Now, in real life, it's supposed to be an infrared weapon, which is to say that the grenade goes over a certain area and then explodes in air and then rains down shrapnel on a given position. However, in this game, you can just as easily use it for direct fire as well. It has the characteristics like an M320 in terms of efficacy, except it's maybe 25% less effective in terms of both range and damage. But you got a magazine of 4 or 5, and you can reload it pretty quickly. However, it's limited just to support class, and you don't have a lot of ammunition beyond that. You got to put a support pack down in order to start reloading it. Having played with it, I think it has quite a bit of potential, but I think some people may find it to be a bit too imbalanced. If you thought the USAS 12 was imbalanced at certain points in Battlefield 3, I can certainly say that you may feel the same way about this weapon because it has long range, and if you can be accurate with it, you can actually kill people pretty easily if they're behind cover because you can essentially do splash damage to them. Not so unlike using an IFV and shooting IFV rounds at a wall to get splash damage in that respect.
That could be, I think, potentially not a bad thing, but I could see why people would hate it because, I mean, there's many situations where people are kind of dug into scenery or terrain or they're stuck in a building and you can't do anything to get them out of there. And, you know, you throw one grenade or you fire one M320, you might get a hit marker or maybe they just see it and run away from it, but then you've got to find them all over again. And at least with this thing, you could fire a few rounds, and we're talking about these guys that are really dug in, hard camping in buildings. I mean, Jack, did you get to see this in the game? Did you get to try it out, and you have a good opinion on it? Or?
Yes, I did. I did get to try it out a little bit. From my experience, I don't know how much you used it, Dusk, but I thought it was quite weak. You know, there were several times when I was like shooting at infantry and getting hits, you know, hit scans, but no kills.
It's a bit like an LVG kind of thing, really.
Yeah, I mean, did you use it that much when we were there, Dusk? Or
I used it for about maybe combined 20 minutes. I got perhaps 5 or 6 kills with it. I noticed that it required at least 3, if not 4 shots to actually kill someone. It was more about splash damage and doing a bit of damage to them as opposed to a lot. Although I'll tell you, I unloaded an entire mag on 2 guys running at about 25 meters away from me, going perpendicular to me, and I was able to kill one with the entire magazine, and I got the next one down, perhaps down to maybe 15% health, 20% health. I was able to finish them off with my primary. But nonetheless, it's not going to be like an M320 with just 5 shots in semi-auto. I think the damage is significantly less, and the splash damage is significantly less. Now, if you can get some direct body shots, perhaps you do more damage. However, I think that this is a way they've tempered it. But at the same time, guys, remember, this was all in the E3 alpha. All the damage variables are way different. And because of that, it may be a very different gun when we see it in the final build of the game.
It's true,
Yeah.
but I think as well, like from what you say, I mean, it's limited to the support class. Sounds to me like a kind of softening up weapon. You know, you can imagine you as a support player, sort of maybe you're sitting a little bit behind, maybe 2 assaults or something like that. You've got a bit of a position to overcome. You could fire off sort of 4 rounds of this thing, get a bit of splash damage on there, just kind of softens that position so that when the assault guys are running up there, they've got a little bit of a better chance of kind of breaking through that line and getting in there. And I think that's the kind of weapon you really want to see. I mean, there's many, many times where you kind of throw out a grenade because you want to get a bit of a splash, or you maybe want to make them duck down. I mean, if you're firing this thing at them, they're going to have to take cover. Gives you that sort of second you need to run up there and sort of get in and clear them out. But I think going on as well, like talking about just some of the subtleties, and we're talking about weapons as well. I mean, there's been obviously a fair kind of resorting of weapons between all the classes. Jack, do you think there's kind of good, positive for the changes, the way that they've maybe moved around the kind of carbines, DMRs and things like this? Do you think that's going to really positively benefit the game, or is it not such a good move?
I like the fact that every class can use carbines now. I think that's the way they've got it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But engineers see, they've got like PDWs now, right? Like the fast firing short range weapons. But if they want, they can use carbines.
Yeah.
But I mean, like having used some of those SMGs, like at E3 and a little bit in the alpha as well, they're really bad at range. Whereas some of the weapons you can get on Engineer at the moment, the class-specific carbines like the ACWR or the M4A1 are very good, like at medium to long range.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the class-specific weapons for the Engineer now, I think they've decided to nerf that class a bit because, I mean, as an Engineer, you don't really do much like close range fighting from what from my experiences anyway. But I mean, what else have they changed, really? The support weapons seem to be a lot more accurate because I actually played support quite a bit at E3. I was using, is it the UM100, I think it's called, or something like that?
The Ultimax 100.
That's the one. I was using that and actually being quite effective with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed much more like a mix between an assault rifle and an LMG. I mean, the only option you've got similar to that in BF3 is the M27, I think it is. That's sort of like an assault rifle.
Yes, the IAR.
Yeah.
But the UM was good, man. I was racking up some kills with that baby. So yeah, I mean, even though they've removed the C4 from the support class and they've got that XM25 thing, the support weapons seem to be a little more accurate now. Of course, in BF3 at the moment, they're really not accurate at all. And
yes,
pretty bad, really. But I like just going back briefly to the that XM25 thing. I think that the support class is really bad now in BF4 if they keep it the same. I mean, I know we don't know what gadgets they're going to give the support class, but taking the C4 away and giving it a grenade launcher, it doesn't really seem like a fair swap to me. I feel like the support is like going to be really underpowered now. I mean, I know they have ammo, but ammo most of the time isn't really a big deal in Battlefield. You can just pick up a kit, or by the time you've nearly run out of ammo, you get killed. So,
do you think their suppression benefit kind of makes up for it? I mean, does it have a significant impact in terms of firing down? I mean, like, let's say, because did you experience the kind of suppression from support players when you're in game, people firing down on you? Did it really kind of screw things for you, or was it sort of totally capable?
I didn't really notice it when I was fighting other players. It was only when I was being suppressed by like a vehicle, like a minigun on the boat, or like the attack helicopter.
Yep.
Even when I was going up against other support players, sorry, I didn't really notice it that much. I mean, maybe it was the range, maybe it was the weapons they were using. Like Dask said, it's pre-alpha, so
yeah,
everything's going to change.
Yeah, definitely.
So we'll see.
Yep. And to tag on to what Jack said about the engineer class, I too think that the engineer class from an infantry perspective will get a nerf just because of its weapons loadout. I think it's a good thing. I, for one, even though I play engineer a majority of the time, I felt like that its gun varieties in Battlefield 3 were a bit too close to the assault class in terms of efficacy. I know they do less damage, but if you were a good shot, and take in mind, I'm talking about this from the PC perspective, you could be almost as effective with an engineer instead of an assault class. And so And take in mind, guys, that in past Battlefield games, the engineer class or the anti-tank class, depending on what game you're talking about, was never supposed to be good against infantry. It was supposed to be very good against vehicles, but really shitty against other infantry, because it's a rock, paper, scissors mentality. You don't want to have a rock that can kill both the scissors and kill the paper. You want to be able to have some hard counters in that. And that was the idea behind it. I think BF3 went a bit off the rails on that for engineer, but I hope that in Battlefield 4 that we'll see an engineer that is a bit more effective against tanks, but a bit less effective against infantry.
I think what they've tried to do is sort of rebalance and bring back this whole idea of a more specific class. It feels like, whether or not it's going to be effective, I don't know, but it feels to me like that's what they've tried to do. But then again, this whole thing of being able to run carbines sort of universally means that there's going to be some interesting choices there for people to run with, especially when it comes to kind of, for example, recon. But I kind of like that, because I always thought that the recon class itself should be more in line with the kind of specialist class that we had in previous Battlefields, where the specialist could, it was what it says. It's a specialist. You run sort of more specific roles, specific missions, rather than, okay, you assault for assault, engineer, support is supporting, and then the specialist class kind of fills in those other roles, the kind of stealthing, flanking roles, they're perhaps spotting from extreme range, and they kind of, maybe full-on flanking or just getting in amongst the enemy and sort of, C4, whatever. So they had those kind of demolition sort of tactician roles specific within that class. And I think when they retitled it kind of Recon, and you ended up having those sort of long range engagements, everyone was kind of like, oh, it's the sniper. And you weren't a sniper. That wasn't its primary task. It was still kind of this specialist role where you fulfilled other elements to support the team. But I feel like the way that they've kind of been trying to balance things back does seem to be more bringing the classes back to what they were. When we're talking about engineers having only this sort of SMGs, obviously they do have a couple of other options, but mainly this, I think the main primary reason for that is the fact that, when you think of engineers, they're supposed to be kind of in vehicles, and then they hop out to defense. So they've got personal defense at close range, because the idea of maybe people are sort of at mid to close range. You're probably not going to have too many engagements at long range. If you've got an attack helicopter or something shooting down on you, well, okay, as an individual soldier, there's not too much you're going to be able to do about that, unless, for example, you've got like an Igla Stinger or whatever. But I do think that that's what my feeling was. They've kind of tried to bring those classes back again. But my only concern there is that I think in Battlefield 3, they've kind of changed the game a bit, because they pushed the way the classes worked in these different ways, especially with Assault, in the way that they kind of rebalance things by giving them the med packs and so on, and the full-on, fast revives. And I think that, from moving on from Battlefield 2 and then, 2043 and Bad Company, everyone kind of had their sort of standard, okay, we know how Battlefield works. Battlefield 3 changed that. And now to sort of bring things back again and change it in Battlefield 4, I wonder whether, and don't forget as well, Battlefield 3 brought in such a huge quantity of new players who have gotten used to how things are done in Battlefield 3. I wonder whether those people are going to be able to kind of translate and get their head around the new way of doing things. And as I say, if they've tried to bring classes back, make them more specific, if that is their plan, which it feels to me, but I mean, whether or not that's actually going to transition and work, and whether people are going to be able to get their head around it, whether people are going to be happy kind of making do with what they have. For example, support class, like you say, Jack, it feels to me like support class again has been made to be really that more of a support class. You can't be sort of so full on, like you say, taking the C4 way, so the support player's not going to be running around throwing C4 and stuff. They seem to be fulfilling that role of ammo resupply and heavy weapon suppression. But Jack, I mean, do you feel that at all, or do you think I'm totally wrong on this one, or what's your thinking about the kind of way the classes go? Do you think people are going to sort of slide back into them in the right way, or do you think people shouldn't be so dictated to? Do you think the class should be maybe a little bit more customizable?
Well, I think, with the whole carbine thing, like the recon class in particular in Battlefield 4 is going to be used a lot. Like, I can guarantee that. They've got, say, right, you want to play recon like as more of a specialist, right? So you take like a carbine as a primary, maybe like a silenced pistol as a secondary. Then they've got two gadgets. One of the new gadgets is a PLD. It's basically a portable soft lamp. So you can run around, right click to aim, and it's got like a green green grainy scope, whatever, you can light up targets for laser designated weapons, right? It's also got a rangefinder on it. So if you want to go with a sniper rifle at like a really long range, like 1,500 meters, you can just get the range of someone, dial the zeroing in, and that makes sniping a whole lot easier. It takes away the whole like guessing game of where I have to put my crosshair. Then you've got C4, so you can take out vehicles. All you got to do is chuck 3 C4 on them, and they're gone. So the recon class is going to be massive in BF4. You're going to see a lot more players using recon. I think people will welcome that, because at the moment the recon class in BF3 is really shit. I think the most balanced class is the engineer at the moment. The assault is obviously overpowered in my opinion at the moment, and it's the most played according to their stats as well, but apparently only by a little bit. I think it was Demise that said that on Twitter or something.
It's very close. I mean, when you think about how many people roll engineer, because you just have to, you have to have engineers there to destroy those vehicles, and also, like you said already, weapons like the ACR, etc. They just by default, have a reasonable amount of range, and then that combined with the vehicles. So but I mean, I think, like you say, I think people are going to gravitate more towards this kind of recon specialist class, because also don't forget they are changing around the paddles for the medic basically. They're not going to work the same, and I think that's going to dissuade people a lot. It's going to put them off the fact that they just can't revive. You're going to still need those medics. But I just don't.
Do you know how they work, the paddles, as it stands at the moment?
Is that a question, or are you testing me?
It's a bit of both, really.
I think they've changed it so the recharge is a little bit slower. So that's what I heard anyway. That seems to be the most sort of sensible way anyway. Is that it just takes a little bit longer, so you can't just go revive. It's more like revive, and then you have to wait for recharge, and then you get to go again. So again, it's how safe is it to revive? If you're not going to be able to just run out there and start pumping the paddles, and you definitely won't be able to sort of be in the middle of combat, spin around and res your whole team. There just will not be the time to do that. That's the sort of inclination that I've got.
Yeah. Well, my experience of it, that's all I'll say, is that you basically you can hold the charge. Okay. So if you just tap on someone, they're revived, but they're not 100% health.
Okay.
If you charge it, they'll be 100% health. Obviously, a charge takes longer, but it'll give the player more health when he's revived.
Right, guys, pleased to say X-Factor has just joined us. So, hello, X-Factor.
Hello, everybody. Sorry for the tardiness.
That's fine. Okay, so we're just talking a little bit about the medics and how they're possibly changing, which I think is going to make a very significant difference to the game. But also, there's a lot of just changes to all these kind of mechanical elements. And I think there's some changes to vehicles. Maybe some haven't changed as much as we would like as well. I mean, Jack, you got to play, I saw a lot of chopper time, you and Chaboy were in the helicopters there. And I know Level had mentioned a little bit about sort of the maneuverability and the feeling of them. How do you feel they've changed? Do you feel that's like a good thing? Are you kind of liking the new movements, or how's it feeling?
Yeah, I mean, they're just a little bit more responsive. I mean, more or less the same. But one thing I did notice was you can pick up a lot of speed if you nose down and use gravity to your advantage. So you can travel a lot faster in the helicopters, but stopping time is longer. So you can't, in BF3 you can just sort of like stop on a dime and go a different direction, turn. You can't really do that anymore. You've got to take your sort of inertia into the equation. You can't just stop straight away anymore, especially if you're going down at quite a steep angle. So apart from that, I mean, pretty much the same, but yeah, cool.
Now, and I wonder, did you manage to do any kind of, because it was a bit of an urban map, but obviously there's the classic Battlefield helicopter deal where you take a bit of a hit, drop it on the deck, out, and start to repair. Did you do any of that in the game? Or does it work the same if you did?
I didn't do any of that, but as far as I've seen and from the stuff that I've heard, yeah, that's exactly the same.
It's the same. Daskro, you played a bit of the tanks. How was that for you?
The tanks feel a whole lot like Battlefield 2 in terms of their movement and shots and reload and what have you. Much like in Battlefield 2, the light machine gun for the secondary did not have nearly as high of an overheat rate relative to what we see in Battlefield 3. The biggest difference that I have to really reiterate about the tanks in Battlefield 4 is that they can take damage, but there's no threshold of damage before they get disabled. Instead, it's based upon where they take damage on the tank, and so they could conceivably take one hit from the rear, one hit on the sides at 90 degrees, and then they will be immobile, but they still have 90 health, or still have 80 health, whatever it may be.
I think that's a smart play on their part, because it's all about positioning. If you want to be the sneaky engineer, you should be rewarded. With that being said, if you're a tanker and you just get spammed by a couple shots in the front and you're disabled, that's usually death to a tanker on most maps in most situations.
I do. I think
I have to agree with X-Factor on that completely, because right now there isn't much of a incentive to be sneaky.
No,
because
just spam.
A lot of these tankers, myself included, we're going to run reactive, and so it guarantees us no damage taken from a rear shot because we got rear reactive. To me, that kind of sucks, because it takes 6-7 seconds to reload that RPG. Tank's pretty fast in Battlefield 3. You can maneuver very quickly to get a better position.
It gives you that oh shit time, like, oh shit, where'd that guy come from? I just got hit on my side. I got to back up, or I got to change position. And that really helps tankers out, because it's like playing chess if you're playing a tanker. It's positioning first, and then the domination will roll downhill.
I'll tell you something else when we're talking about vehicles. There's a lot of talk in the game about improved netcode and stuff. Now, obviously, again, still in the alpha, so plenty of time for things to change around. But we all know that a lot of the tank sort of mechanics, the way they move around maps, they often slide in all over the place like they're on ice. Now, again, perhaps not the best map for it because it was kind of urban, but did you get any feeling of that with the way they were moving? Did you feel more grounded when you were moving around?
No, I didn't. I felt very nimble. I felt like just like I feel in Battlefield 3 on a very open map. I actually felt like I go a little bit faster compared to in Battlefield 3 in that respect. I was taking corners very quickly. I was maneuvering very easily across the map. I felt like that when I was engaged in infantry, they didn't have much of a chance against me. Now, granted, they could change all this very easily. They can change the speed of the tank. They can make it so that when you turn, you lose a significant amount of your momentum. There's a lot of things that they could do in the game that makes the tank a whole different type of game to play.
But with them already changing the way the tank reloads and the ammunition supply, would you say they have to be careful with tweaking further?
Oh, my gut feel is that the reload times for the tank, it has unlimited ammo right now. For those that have watched the pre-alpha footage, you can fire, and once you run out of your magazine, it slowly reloads.
Yeah, wasn't it 7 seconds, 8 seconds around after that initial magazine's gone?
It was not anything short, but there was an instance in which I was 1v1 on an enemy tank, and we were both out of ammo, and it was just us maneuvering back and forth, waiting for us to get our reloads and get fires on him. And luckily,
Can you think about the new dynamic that adds between armor play? You catch a guy, and you know he's out because maybe you're counting shots. You just bum rush them; they're done.
And and the thing is, I think that in the final version of the game, they will make the reload times to regenerate ammo even longer than we saw in the beta, because I think in the alpha, excuse me, they made it so that the action was much more intense, that people were able to still stay in the game and play a lot without.
They said they tweaked health pools and they tweaked health regen, I think, so people weren't dying instantly and had some longevity to them.
Yes,
and a lot of people mentioned it. Sorry, a lot of people mentioned about that as well. There was loads of people going, "Oh, it takes so long to kill people now," but they've tweaked it deliberately for demonstration purposes. And I think a lot of people sort of seem to forget that it's a demonstration purpose. They don't want people to just walk around a corner and die. They want people to sort of be able to move around the game, look at the maps, etc., etc. So until we see sort of more beta footage, we're not really getting a full picture of how the game really is functioning.
Now, there's two other variables I do want to talk about for the tank real quickly. The first thing is that if we do assume that the tank ammo regeneration is longer, it makes the commander so much more important, because they're going to be dropping ammo just like in Battlefield 2, which means that the tank has to really work in tandem with the commander to get that big supply drop down. And then further, will the supply drop, like in Battlefield 2, also regenerate the health of the tank passively? It's a very big deal, because remember, in Battlefield 1942 and Battlefield Vietnam, there were stations that you could drive your tank over that would auto repair and auto ammo your tank. The second aspect to the tank is that you now have a choice between primary rounds. both an AP round or armor piercing round, or a high explosive round or an anti-infantry round. And so you can tailor your tank now to be much more focused on anti-infantry or anti-vehicle with a significant opportunity cost. Because
let me ask you this: with the buff to the 50 cal, do you think it would be wise to go the infantry way with the main shell?
That's a very good question. It depends on how powerful the HE shell is. I try to use it. It was not in the game, even though I sledded it a bunch of times. But
I think it's going to depend a lot on the map as well. I mean, if you're playing a very wide open map with a lot of armor, then obviously you're going to be wanting to engage those targets at range. If you're in a more urban map like we've seen on the Shanghai map, then I would probably say go with the infantry one, because there's a lot more chance. I mean, we saw in a lot of the gameplay these tanks coming around the corner and taking 4 or 5 rockets at a time. I mean, so you're going to be wanting to deal with that. It's just going to be like anything else. It's like your prioritization, and you're going to pick your classes and your setup based on that principle, I think. So.
And further, if there are vehicles in the game that it's not just one tank but multiple tanks, if you have a buddy and you're tandem tanking, you could have one guy go focus on armor, and one go infantry, and then play certain lanes that are going to be more exposed to one or the other. But nonetheless, I think X-Factor has a very valid point. If the secondary is so powerful, then why go HE? It's a very good question.
I mean, I think it's interesting what you said as well about resupplying your armor column, for example, from the commander mode. And I want to ask Jack this, because I've spoken to you about it already, Daskro. But Jack, with the commander, do you feel like there's a bit too much power there, and there's like a huge chance of it just kind of compromising the game? I mean, when we think about tank resupplies, that's one element, but also obviously there's kind of general power that the commander has. Now, from what you played, and again, obviously, it's sort of pre-alpha. There's a lot of changes and imbalances there that we're not necessarily going to be aware of. But does it concern you? And do you feel like, for example, when we talk about resupplying armor, I mean, let's say you've got a couple. Let's say we're playing on a map that's armor heavy. You've got 3 or 4 tanks out in the field, and you, as your team, have got the same. One commander is resupplying his tanks, the other is not. Now, obviously, that one player is kind of compromising the team and the whole game. Does that worry you?
I don't know, certain aspects of the commander mode worry me, because, you know, after speaking to a couple of DICE devs to like learn more about commander mode, like the success of your team, you know, you sort of work in tandem with the commander. So if your team is like capping a load of flags, the commander gets new unlocks. So it's a bit of like a, you know, there's two sides of the coin. You know, you can't just be a really good commander, because if your team is doing shit, then you're not going to get options like tomahawks and you know, the infantry scan. So I'm just a bit worried that it's, you know, there's going to be too much of a snowball effect there. If you've got one really good commander and then one average commander, you know, that really good commander is going to win pretty much every time. Because if he's
probably going to lead the team in kills.
Well, exactly. One thing that I don't really like as well, they've got this thing which is like high priority target. So as a commander, say like one of us is on like a 20 kill streak, right? The commander will then get the option to, you know, essentially highlight you for the whole of his team to go, this guy is a high priority target. You need to go and kill him. So, you know, is that really fair on the guy that's playing well? Probably not.
I want to ask X-Factor this after his epic helicopter streak that I watched literally this week. How would you feel about that, X-Factor? You were already getting locked around the clock when you were playing that game, man, and people accusing you of hacking. But how would you feel about having a big triangle stuck on your head as well?
Anytime you're an infantry player, tanker, in a helicopter, and you're the guy up on the totem pole, they're always chasing after you. This is even more incentive. And an actual, 3D spot tool that goes on top of your head?
I think so, yeah.
You know,
the whole team will go, right.
Yeah, you become an objective, essentially.
Yeah. I can't imagine that. Yeah, I would cower in a corner with a shotgun and some Pokeballs and just wait.
It sounds like a bad idea to me, because it's punishing the player that's doing really well when he hasn't made a mistake.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I don't like about it.
It's a weird thing. I mean, I've got to say I don't want to be totally down on them. I mean, it's nice that they're trying to, it's nice that they're trying to sort of balance things up and make some changes and so on and so on. And I think it's a good thing not to change too much, because like I've said a million times, you know, you go too far out of it and it just kind of ruins it for everyone when you see games that make sweeping changes just because they feel obligated to do so because it's like the next game. And I don't think they've done that with Battlefield 4. I think they've kept it kind of real, and they have listened to the community. A lot of the changes that we see are sort of community awareness things, like, for example, suppression. Okay, it's great that they've changed that a lot. A lot of people are going to be really, really happy about that. And a lot of the things are just kind of small, general tweaks. On the other hand, there are some new things coming in and some things coming back from other Battlefield titles where you kind of go, not so sure that is a great idea. I mean, a lot of people talking about Commander mode and bringing it in. One of the questions that I get asked the most, and I don't know whether any of you guys would have asked any DICE employees and got a kind of significant answer about this, was, is Commander going to be a sort of mandatory game mode? Is it going to be in every game? And I think some people this week had said it is going to be appearing in Rush as well. I'm kind of curious how that's going to work. But I mean, Jack or Daskro, had you heard anything about whether it's going to be sort of a mandatory mode, or whether it's going to be you'll have like normal, like, okay, let's say like with Conquest Assault. Okay, you've got Conquest Assault and Conquest. Are we going to have Commander and non-Commander modes? Or would you guys like to speculate if you haven't heard anything? I mean, Daskro first.
Yes, I have talked to the DICE devs about it. They told me it was optional, server-side option. So if you don't want it in there, you don't have to have it in there. And then one other tidbit I do want to mention about the Commander mode more generally is that when DICE was looking at the features that they were going to put in Battlefield 4, one of the most consistent demands that they received for Battlefield 4 wasn't spectator mode or free cam or battle recorder. It was Commander mode, and that was the case in Battlefield 3. It was the case in Battlefield Bad Company 2, and this consistent request made it a priority for them to put it in. So even though that some of us may not like some of the aspects of Commander mode, there is maybe perhaps a silent majority of people, or at least a very vocal minority of people, that want this Commander mode in.
And they're smart. They put it on a toggle, a server-side toggle, on or off.
That is a good thing. I mean, but for the kind of default players, you're going to have to, suck it up maybe. I mean, Jack, right, okay, we already see in a lot of the games now 500% ticket servers all the way through. Do you think there's going to be a concern that we'll see, like, I mean, what happens if people end up and the only games they can get into are Commander modes and the only games that they can play are just steamrolls? Now, I don't want to be like the pessimist guy who sort of goes, oh, it's going to be awful. But it's a concern that people worry about. It's a concern that people are going to have. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, like Daskro said, I think I was there actually. I think we were speaking to Zinto about it. He said it's going to be like a server-side option. So, I mean, Commander mode, it doesn't make sense for like a 5v5. Like, yeah, sure. Who's going to need Commander mode? I don't think it really makes sense for Rush either. I think it's very much like a BF2 thing,
it seems Conquest all the way.
Conquest large. It makes sense, right? Yeah. There's a lot of players, and having someone who can sort of manage stuff and oversee things, it's cool. For the players that maybe aren't so good at, like, don't have quick reflexes, or they've not played first-person shooters for years, it's a cool thing for them because they can feel like they're actually having an impact on the game.
Yeah.
But in terms of like Commander only servers, I don't think it'll be a big deal. Like, I think there'll be plenty of servers that have Commander off and plenty that have Commander on. But one thing, like you said, 500 ticket servers, I do not want to see that in BO4. Like, there's just so many servers now that run like a ridiculous amount of tickets. I mean, I'm all for servers being able to change settings and everything, because that's cool. But
now, Jack, I want to interrupt you just for a second, because one thing that I did hear, or overhear rather, at E3 was the very concern that you just described, in that some of the DICE devs were talking about how that they never wanted to have the servers set up in a way where you could do 5,000 tickets and it just becomes a point grind because they're all ranked. Now, I didn't hear them talk about anything about how they're going to remedy this, but I think it is an issue that is on the radar for them, and they may do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they do, because I mean, only literally this week I jumped on for, it was sort of late in the evening. I'd done a lot of work, and I thought, okay, I'll just hop on. I mean, sometimes you sit down for an evening, but a lot of the times, I mean, I know you guys are probably the same. You kind of sit down. You want to just have a few games, maybe play for 1 hour or so, 2 hours perhaps, depending on what's going on. just couldn't find a server of what we wanted. There was only sort of a few running the things that we specifically wanted, and they were all like massive high ticket counts. And we were just like, this is not going to work. We just don't have the time here. And also the other thing is, at least with Conquest, okay, Conquest having a large ticket count, at least it's sort of balanced and even, okay, and you just have a kind of give and take all the way through the match, and it's a big fight, and it's a long game. Rush on 500% tickets. I mean, come on. Like, I can only tell one time where we managed to hold out, and unbelievably it was Grand Bazaar. I think that was probably part of it, was that we managed to lock down like 3 corridors, and that was it. They weren't getting through, and we were sort of taking out that tank time and time again, and they just couldn't get through. We were on the we held out on the 3rd base, but that was like a 500% ticket round, and it was a grind. It really was. But most games of Rush that have high ticket counts like that, it's just attackers all the way every time, and you just can't get past it. I think I can understand high ticket counts on Conquest for sure, but for Rush, I just think it shouldn't even be an option. I think like 200% max, and even that is giving it a bit too much, you know? I mean, would you like to see them take a kind of more proactive role in sort of picking server conditions, Jack? Do you think that'd be a good thing for DICE to step in and say, okay, you know, we saw what happened with Battlefield 3, and we're going to, you know, put the boot down now?
I mean, to a certain extent, because like, I know what you mean about the Rust servers. You know, they've got like 500% Rust.
It's mad, you know.
Yeah, it's impossible for the defenders to win because it's just a grind. But you know, at the same time, if they start imposing like limits, people are going to go nuts, aren't they? Like, oh, you're locking the game down. But maybe just tone it back a little bit. Maybe just 200% is like that. You can go between 100 and 200%. Like you said,
fine,
like,
isn't it? You know,
Conquest is cool. Like, to me, the best like Battlefield games that I have are the Conquest games that have like maybe 400, 500 tickets. It lasts between like 20 minutes to half an hour, and then it's a new map. It doesn't get boring. But when you've got 1,000 tickets, I won't even consider joining that server because it will just last too long.
Yeah.
But you know, they've got to be careful because, like I say, if they do put limits on, people will just go nuts. Yeah.
Well, I mean, something people have said, and you kind of sort of go, okay. But something I hear all the time is people saying, well, look, if people didn't want to play 500% ticket servers, they wouldn't make them, because they said, oh, well, 500% ticket servers are just the most populated compared to the smaller servers, and they just say, okay, yeah, these servers are never full. It is, I think, kind of a fair point to make, I suppose. I mean, when I look at a couple of people's servers that I know which have the smaller ticket counts, people still do come along, but they just don't have the same membership that these high server ticket counts go. And it worries me a little bit, because I sort of feel like, okay, well, DICE put these things in place, and then people have obviously got on board with them, so now that's what they expect, and they, you know, they've raised the bar, and then now that's where they're at. And unless they literally sort of step in and say, right, we're going to change it now, I don't think that's really going to. I don't think we'll see a change. I think we'll still see it roll into Battlefield 4 as such. But Daskro, well, how do you feel about these high ticket servers?
I think they're pretty stupid. I don't like them. I mean, they are so grindy, and especially like the Metro ones, where it's just a constant barrage of people going support or N320 with assault and just grenading the bejesus out of all the lanes. I can understand how, in certain circumstances, high-ticket servers are a really good idea, and in very few instances, for instance, in fast vehicle respawn servers, where they're essentially servers dedicated to people who just want to fly aircraft around. And I don't like the fact that they're ranked, but that's just what it is. But in those specific circumstances, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with a bunch of flyboys getting in and dogfighting each other until it's time to go to bed, because it's that there otherwise is not a good venue to do that. And but I think for Rush, it's utterly insane to have a high ticket Rush server. It doesn't make any sense at all, and so I don't like it.
What do you feel about the marine combat? Because I talked a little bit about this, about sort of, I mean, infantry can kind of swim right underwater now. Again, I mentioned today on a video about sort of that. We're not too sure, you know, the full-on length of time that's going to be in the final game, about how long you can swim underwater for. But that combined with the new water feature of like the water feature, it's not like a garden fountain or something, but I mean like the way that Frostbite now affects water in the way it actually affects it as a force rather than just kind of a static feature in the game. It's quite exciting. I haven't really seen it in a game before. I think it's going to provide a lot of options. Now, in obviously the Shanghai, content that we've seen, that's a bit different because it's kind of more flat. It's in a city, but I think we're definitely going to get some of these quite exciting maps where, I mean, they've put it into the game, so it's bound to be a feature in a multiplayer map. Jack, would you like to speculate on what kind of environment you would like to see this water sort of, put into the game and the kind of combat that you could have therein? I mean, I think everyone expects there to be a kind of aircraft carrier combat somewhere in there, and no doubt you'll have little boats and things fighting all around that. But how do you feel of it as a feature into the game? Just kind of, goes towards just creating that immersive environment, doesn't it?
Can I just say on the previous point, there's one thing I want to add. Fast vehicle respawn shouldn't be a thing at all. It just breaks the game. It shouldn't, just get rid of that, please. But yeah, the water. I test again the underwater thing. I tested this at E3.
Oh, sure.
You can actually drown yourself if you hold control. You go under the water. After a few seconds or so, your character starts taking damage at like 20 a second, and you can actually kill yourself. But in terms of like the big waves that they've got, which we saw in the Frostbite demo, that sort of stuff is like really exciting to me because they're trying to pitch this whole there might be a level which is completely on the sea, and it looks like they're going to maybe go that way with a couple of islands or oil rigs maybe. But these big waves, it sounds like you're gonna be able to like hide behind them like in a boat. Yeah, which is cool because you need to get like an angle of sight, but then all of a sudden a big wave comes up and you can't see the guy anymore. But I definitely think and I hope that there's going to be a level. It's probably Rush where the attackers have to assault an aircraft carrier, and then as you blow up each MCOM and get further into this like aircraft carrier, it starts flooding. Now that sounds awesome. Really cool to me, and starts sinking, and eventually, it sinks, and maybe you're underwater for part of it. I don't know, but
that could be really stressful and traumatizing. You sort of go down a corridor and you think you're safe. You turn around and you're suddenly blocked off. You're underwater. It could be really exciting.
I'm definitely looking forward to those sort of dynamic levels. I know you did the whole one with the dam, and there's a lot of rumors flying around that there is actually going to be a level like that in the game, which is very exciting.
It really would be quite exciting. I literally almost every day this week still get messages from people like that. Have you seen this video? Yes, I've seen the video. But
I said the same thing to Luetin. I messaged him talking about it.
Yeah, we'll see. It does look kind of exciting. I think it'd be, everything aside, I think it would be an awesome map to play from a Rush point of view, but from a Conquest point of view as well. I mean, loads of people going, it's just so, straight line, blah, blah, blah. It would work as a Conquest map perfectly well, that one, because you'd have different points. I mean, the way I designed that one as well, you had kind of a huge open area out the front, and there would be lots of different points you could have as Conquest, and then maybe 2 on the main dam, etc. But yeah, it remains to be seen. We'll see what happens. DICE stole the idea, but whatever. But no, it is exciting. But I mean, even that, I haven't really sort of had a lot of time because we've been talking so much about Battlefield 4, and all the last week we've been looking at the sort of dynamics mechanics of the game. I'm really excited to see what maps they bring out. I haven't really spent too much time thinking about the possibilities of what they're going to have in there. Now, obviously, we've got new factions coming in, and that raises whole new possibilities of kit and sort of features there. But it also brings a lot of ideas about sort of environment and sort of locations. Now, it could be that we're starting to see a lot more locations kind of Asia and things like that, maybe that we haven't had so much before. I really like the idea of that. I mean, you can imagine, have you ever seen... in Thailand, those kind of huge mushroom statues that they have? I think it's Thailand or Indonesia. You know the ones? You know the James Bond film Man with the Golden Gun?
Are they literally like
Yes.
literally a statue of a mushroom?
Yeah, they're like big stacks that just come out of the sea. They're like these huge rock stacks.
Yes.
And it's kind of like if you imagine like Avatar. Yeah, they're kind of like that as well. And again, you can imagine if they sort of found some locations like that, you could have some really exciting combat and things. Something that I want to see is a map which is not fully, but primarily sort of more marine combat where you have to kind of skim between islands and stuff. So you have lots of little archipelagos and things like that, and you have
I
to
think
sort
that's
of dodge
definitely
between them.
coming with this game.
I would love to see that. I think it's about time, because we often have had island-based maps before, and we obviously know like Wake Island, etc., etc. But what we've never really had is maybe you sort of have a primary. I mean, imagine for Conquest, you have one primary island, okay, which is one base, and maybe it has a few buildings and blah blah blah, and then you have some more satellite-based kind of islands, maybe a couple close together, things, and they have sort of slightly different resources about what they can spawn for you and things like that. You could have a really kind of interesting combat situation there where you have lots of little boats sort of dashing between conquest bases, having fights on the fly, and maybe helicopters chasing them down at the same time. So I'd like to see them mix it up a bit rather than just like, okay, got a field map, got an urban map. Just try and have some of these more exciting things. And I think, I mean, I feel hopeful that they've sort of moved that way a little bit and tried to be more kind of, I don't want to say more interesting, because a lot of the maps in Battlefield are always interesting, and I don't tend to get bored of them. But I hope they've kind of pushed that and taken these kind of other world places that we're going to, and sort of Asian, like I say, you might have jungle maps, for example, which I always thought would be really cool, lots of dense foliage. And again, you look at the kind of way Frostbite's move forward, and the sort of, I mean, from the demos and things that we've seen already, when you think about the single player mode, when they're moving through that forest and the guy looks up and everything's moving, and also from that Frostbite tech demo we saw the other day, you know, again, you could see
how the trees react due to explosions and wind and everything else. It's crazy.
Exactly. And you would have seen this when we went to the when you went to the sort of thing for the single player. Jack and me would have seen this when we were looking at the tech demo there as well, and they explained it all about how Frostbite now affects things with forces. That's really, really exciting. I mean, physics in game have been around for ages, but I love the idea of these forces changing things. But I mean, Jack, have you thought too much about maps? Is there any one that you've always had that you would like to see?
No. You sort of put me on the spot there. No, I mean, like you said, there's lots of cool things that they can do now. I mean, I love the little micro things that they've got in there, like the bollards, and I mean, they call it Levolution, but whatever. And you know, there's a flag on the Shanghai map, and you can completely close all of the shutters around it. They can be blown up, but you know, it's quite an effective way of covering yourself. Or there's an elevator that goes up to a specific building, and you can cut the power at the top of the building. There's like a little fuse box, and you can cut the power so the elevators can't be used anymore. So you can deny, you know, the enemy team from getting up on that building. Does it have like a
10,000 staircase? You just
no, all it has is that
you get
one
fatigued
elevator
running up it.
or you can obviously get a helicopter up there.
Yeah, sure.
You said about fatigue there as well. One thing I noticed when I was playing, when you sprint now, you don't instantly go to like full speed like you do in BF3. There's like a bit of a build up, like you're accelerating. Also, you can't spam jump anymore. They've basically copied the way Counter-Strike does it now. If you jump repeatedly, your character slows down and eventually will just stop moving.
That's good.
They're going to, you know, I mean, I know in BF3, if you sprint and jump at the same time, you move faster than if you were just sprinting.
See, it's all about these little tweaks. Yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
What about if you've got...
Somebody will figure out the right pattern. Take 10 steps, jump, take 10 more, jump twice.
Yes. What about if you've got the knife
dynamic of it, though?
What about if you've got the knife out? Does that make a difference?
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows you run faster than I.
Correct.
I think it'll be... Yeah, go on.
It'll be interesting to see what other map packs they introduce into this, because one of the things about Battlefield 4 that we already know, that DICE isn't working on a next Battlefield. And at this point in time, when Battlefield 3 was about to be released, they were already working on Battlefield 4. So that brings around Second Assault's coming, which they've already hinted that Metro and Caspian Border are going to be there. The other two are up for grabs. Will they have a Bad Company 2 re-imaging of some of those maps? What else will they have?
I would love to see that. I think a lot of Bad Company maps were sort of undervalued, particularly Bad Company 1. There's a lot of really awesome maps in that didn't get seen the light of day anymore, and I would love to see them reimagine them and bring them into Battlefield 4. I think it'd be really, really awesome. Just talking about maps in general, but there's loads of maps people loved. Oasis, always a classic. People super love that map, and that would be a really great one to come back in. But some of those more open maps, I mean, Harvest Day, people still always love that map, and again, that would be fantastic to see brought back in. But I wanted to say as well, though, about when Jack was talking about sort of character movement and things like that, I mean, one thing that I noticed, and I think a few people noticed, was the kind of general look and feel of the game. And that's something that's not really so much of a dynamic mechanic, just the kind of environment that you're playing in. And like I said to Level on my video the other day, one thing I noticed a lot was when people were playing, it just seemed to feel more real, and therefore I would imagine just feels slightly more immersive. And Level spoke tons and tons, actually. He's gone on and on about the sound, about how the sound is just unbelievable now compared to Battlefield 3. You know, Battlefield 3 was a big jump from Battlefield Bad Company 2, but how Battlefield 4 has gone insanely forward with that. But I think just kind of the point of their evolvement of the environment and the way that the players move. I mean, from what you guys had seen and played, did it feel like that for you, Daskro, that you kind of felt a bit more immersed? And I mean, I was thinking of moments like I saw where there's a guy hiding behind some concrete bollards, and then one guy goes for a run across the street. And when I was watching this, I was like, this feels just more dynamic. It feels more kind of involved, you know? Did you feel that?
I felt like that the effects were a bit more ramped up compared to Battlefield 3 in terms of both the sounds and in terms of when a given action took place, an explosion, for instance. It felt a little bit more visceral in terms of the visualization. I think that was in part due to the camera feels a bit shakier. Like it's a notch more of a shaky cam kind of effect when you're running and when an explosion takes place. And some people may not like that. I thought that was really cool in that respect. So it did feel quite different in that respect.
XFactor, what did you think about the kind of look and feel of the game now? I mean, it's moved on a little bit, but did you like the way it looked?
I think it's great. When we went out to the single player reveal, I'm like, where's the multiplayer? The other shoe's about to drop. They're hiding this for a reason. But I was so surprised at how this came out, and I'm ecstatic with the changes that they made. One thing I've noticed is it looks like it's going to slow the game down just a tad and make you think just a little bit more before you go running, hopping, and skipping across an open field. And I'm excited about that. It might make this game, it'll reward the more tactical players, I think, just a little bit compared to Battlefield 3.
Do you like that that's a feature, Jack? Do you think that's a good thing to slow it down a little bit, make things a little bit more considered?
Yeah, I mean, like XFactor says, it just makes it a much more tactical game. It's, I mean, the feeling of the game is great, in my opinion. Especially when you're having like medium to close range firefights. You know, I think the way that they've changed the suppression now has a massive effect on the feel of like medium close range firefights. It feels good. Honestly, it feels like a really good version of Battlefield 3. It's just like it's what BF3 should have been.
We're going to dangerous territory.
Plus a hold of new features that make sense. You know?
I mean, how nice is that when, you know, now you can have a snapshot on a guy and not be completely suppressed where your gun's shooting China and India in the same pattern, right? And you have a shot at killing this guy, a legit shot.
I think that's what you say. It's literally about the feel of it. And I think until people really get hands-on with it, I don't think they're really going to, without whatever, I don't think they're really going to feel it. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think Daskro and Jack, you will probably testify to this, that it is about that feel. Would you say that for someone who's just seen it and someone who's literally played the game, that's worlds apart?
I mean, I think you can, if you look at the footage, it looks more fluid than BF3 in terms of animations, and I love how they've like sort of like centered the gun model a bit now. It doesn't take up like loads of the screen space like it did before. Like if you had like a sniper rifle with like an 8x scope, it takes up almost a quarter of your screen. Like it's not like that anymore because they've centered it. You get much more screen space. But I don't know. It's just like the little things they've changed. Like in BF3. So you go prone and you can back up into a wall, and half of your body goes into the wall, and that part of you can't be shot. Likewise, if your legs are sticking out of a building, someone can kill you by just shooting your legs through the wall.
I love doing that.
Well, there you go. But it's such a stupid thing to have in the game. But in BF4, they've removed that. You cannot prone in a corner. If you prone in a corner, the game pushes you out of the corner until you've got enough space to lie down. So just such a little thing makes such a big difference to infantry play in particular. And it's just they've added all these little features, and things that BF3 should have had, and it just makes a great sum. You know, it's going to be great. I'm super hyped for BF4. I cannot wait for it to be released.
I think it just, yeah, it becomes more of a whole product, and I think it does actually raise a very interesting question of kind of what makes a new game as such, because a lot of people are saying, it's not really a new game, they've only just sort of refined things back, pushed things back. But I think it's about how it feels to you as an experience. Like if Battlefield 4 feels significantly different to you than Battlefield 3, you can analyze it all you like, but the fact that you are having a completely different experience than you did in the previous game, to me, designates that it's a new game. And I think that is probably one of the most telling things, really, that, like you say, it feels more direct, it feels more immersive. There's a lot of changes happen between all the sort of dynamics and so on. The fact that it's built around, you know, a similar engine, the fact that it takes a lot of the core elements of Battlefield forward, which is what everybody would want anyway, I don't see how you could say that it's not a new game. But XFactor, I wanted to ask you one thing, and feel free to mention on this point as well, but I wanted to ask you, 5-man squad, what does that mean to you, 5-man squad?
Well, you know, me personally, if you have 4 people working with you, you just became that more powerful, and it's going to change the dynamic of competitive play as well. And Daskro could speak on this, because right now some of the dynamics are squad balancing, squad hopping, and if you've got that 5th guy, it's going to completely change that. So I'm kind of excited that they brought back the 5-man squads, because it's going to make squads that much more powerful that are working together.
Definitely. Daskro, what do you think about 5-man?
Well, I think the 5-man squad is one of the differences between BF4 and BF3, but I think it's important to note that you can watch all this footage of Battlefield 4 and sort of get a feel that it looks a bit different. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of people who are saying this is just Battlefield 3.5, but I think the biggest difference by far is going to be the class dynamics and the squad dynamics, be it that the given classes are going to be much more balanced appropriately, and so you're going to have that squad variety in order to be a successful squad. And on top of that, a way that we go about generating more squad perks through playing the objectives, working together as a squad, staying in a squad together, encourages a whole lot more team play. It may look similar to Battlefield 3 in terms of the graphics and perhaps with some of the same guns, but I think many people are going to be astonished on how different it actually plays when you're in a server playing with other people. It's no longer going to be everyone go and assault and a few guys go and support and recon engineer. It's going to be a wide variety of classes, which means that more people that have different varieties of skill sets are going to be more viable in the game. And I think it's a good thing. I think people are going to be astonished on how different it plays, and I think they're going to like it.
Definitely. I want to bring back to another mechanic. A lot of people commented to me about recoil and how a lot of the weapons look slightly different. Some of them look like they have a lot less recoil than they would have done in Battlefield 3. Now, Jack, how do you feel the recoil felt compared with Battlefield 3, and would you like to see it altered from Battlefield 3? What do you feel that means to players?
Honestly, when I was playing, like, I didn't really notice a big difference in the recoil. I mean, tap firing was still the most effective way of killing someone that wasn't like face to face with you.
Sure.
Obviously, in BF3, you tap fire with the mouse. I think you can do it on console as well, just with the trigger. But at medium range, that's pretty much the best way to kill people. I was doing that at E3, and it was still pretty effective. But I don't know. It's hard to tell because, you know, like we said earlier, they nerf the damage values. Yeah. So
yeah, that and the mouse, you're walking up to a station that has a set sensitivity that might feel foreign to you and probably feels really foreign to you.
Yeah, it was a Razer mouse that I didn't even recognize. You know, not like a Death Adder or anything. The sensitivity was ridiculously high. You know, even when I went into the game and put it on 0 in Battlefield 4, you know, and then even changed it in Windows as well, it was still too high for me because I use a very low sensitivity. So yeah, it's kind of hard really to judge that at the moment, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of changes. But I mean, tap firing was effective, and in terms of recoil, there was very little, I thought, on the guns in BF4.
And that's a question: are they going after trying to swoop in and get that COD crowd, which the low recoil, hold the button down, kill everything in sight?
I was going to say to you, XFactor, what do you? Because I mean, you're the man about sort of, you know, control and dynamics for these kind of things, and how do you feel about it? Because you've spent a long time obviously refining back and explaining to people this is the way to do this, etc. But what do you actually feel in terms of these kind of mechanics in game? Do you feel like it's kind of a Battlefield signature, that this really is a strong element to the game? It makes it more individual. A lot of people have commented that, you know, it benefits strong players. Okay, if you have the skill to do these kind of things, it benefits you and adds that kind of nice differentiation between players. You bring it back so that that's gone, then all of that is lost. Now, I've got to tell you, what would happen if that changed? Do you feel it's something that should definitely stay in the game? You want to see that in Battlefield?
I think there should be a spread of low recoil to high recoil guns for the various classes, but I think that you should be rewarded if you can tame the beasts that are the higher recoil guns in the game. They should set it up so that there's some sort of dynamic where maybe they shoot a little faster, do a little bit more damage, a sliding scale, so that the stronger guns are the harder to use guns, not the low recoil guns. I remember, you know, in Bad Company 2, I played a ton of time as a bushwookie in competitive, and I used the VSS. And that gun, once you learned how to master that thing, it would drop people at close and across the map. And the same thing with Battlefield 3. There are guns in the game that are a little harder to use, but if you master them, they just destroy people. I think there should be that wide spectrum.
Yeah, Daskro, you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I like gun variety as much as the next guy. Some guns are going to be better than others. My main thing is I want to see class balance and I want to see vehicle balance. I want to have this true rock, paper, scissors philosophy in Battlefield 4 so that if there is a guy who is doing really, really good on the other team in a tank, I want the ability for the enemy team to do something about it if they make the conscious effort to at least attempt to do it. They all go engineer and get a bunch of hits on it, then that's a way to do it. Likewise, there's a guy in the air. I want the enemy team, I want my team rather, the ability to take them out somehow. Not saying it has to be all stingers. I'm not saying it has to be all fixed gun emplacements, but I like the idea of having this hard counters, and that's what I'd like to see.
And that's the thing that is a dynamic in Battlefield 3. It's up to the individual to have the impact on the game. So let's say Daskro is just destroying the enemy team with a tank, and people start complaining, wow, this guy's destroying us, what the heck? But then they're sniping in the back of spawn, and they're not grabbing the RPG or the SOFLAM or, you know, the Javelin. At the end of the day, if the enemy team wants to take Daskro out, they probably can. They just need to make the conscious choice of the proper kit at the time and maybe push a different lane.
I think something else that I want to tie into this is actually kind of just DICE themselves when we're talking about balance. Now, something that I'd seen was that they wanted to make a lot more kind of smaller, faster updates and patches to the game in Battlefield 4. I think that's something that will, you know, please a lot of people, because a lot of people were unhappy with the kind of massive sweeping patches we saw in Battlefield 3.
DLC patches.
Yeah, for sure, which would just, you know, great that there was tons of content. You know, when a DLC patch came out, everyone was like, oh my god, you don't know where to begin, there's so many changes going in there. But as I commented to some of the DICE devs, and I'd spoken to them about this as well when we were actually in Stockholm and spoke to a few people about it, they sort of shared the concern that, like I had said, that when you make these massive patches to the game, in many ways it's kind of defeats the purpose, because surely when you make a small change to the game, you want to see then directly that effect. But if you drop a bomb of changes, well, surely, you know, you're changing so many things at the same time. If suddenly something starts to feel unbalanced again, then you're kind of like, whoa, well, what caused that? We dropped so many things in there that we couldn't really tell what happened. So I think it's a good thing, again, going forward, that they're going to be making these smaller patches, or this is what they've said anyway, that they're going to be sort of slowly updating through the game. But I think this kind of goes towards sort of saying, it just kind of gives a more inclination about DICE and the way that they're sort of going forward into these titles now. And I really like it. I mean, in the past, and even in Battlefield 3, I felt slightly like they were a bit standoffish. They're a bit more like, okay, this is how we've made the game and this is how we want it to be played. And in fact, sometimes when they'd been broached questions from the community, that was kind of the answer that got given. It was more kind of like, well, this is how we wanted it to be. But, you know, when we were in Stockholm and when we spoke to people out there, the real feeling that I got was that they had, they really wanted to make this game for the community. And this was what I said when I came back and I made my videos about it. And it seems that now when they've released these things, they've come up on it. They really have. They've done what people wanted. They've listened. And I really hope that going into the year when we start to see this out here, that they carry that through and that they don't sort of go back to sort of being like, well, that's it. We've changed it and this is what it's going to be. But it's always a real difficult thing. It's a double-edged sword there, because you can't please everybody all the time. And there is that worry that, like we were talking about before with the Commander, that there is always that vocal minority. The people that shout the loudest maybe don't really represent the community as a whole. And it's always a bit of a worry.
I think this game will have a ton of DLC, just because there's nothing that they're working on that's Battlefield related. Surprise if it's less than 8. I would be surprised.
I agree with that,
because it's got to make it. It's got to make 3 years until they get another Battlefield title out.
Yeah, and I think from a financial perspective, when you look at how much money they've made off of Battlefield DLCs versus the vanilla game, it's going to be big.
If this title hits big, like all the analysts are looking at, as long as it performs, the first DLC does well, they can ride that DLC coattail for at least 2 to 3 years, and they have to.
Yep, in our title,
because you can't take a proven winner now. Because Battlefield 3, Crash told me in L.A. or San Francisco, 23 million sales up to that point. That's a winner, and you can't kill that cash cow by not having a title rolling at all times. To take a risk on Battlefront and Mirror's Edge, because that's a risk. They've never done it before. Now they've got big cult followings, and Battlefront's going to be one of the most hyped games in the world, but it doesn't mean it's going to deliver. Look at Medal of Honor Warfighter. That was tremendously hyped, and it died. They killed the dev team.
Yeah, we've talked a bit about hype before and kind of the damage that can do. But do you know what? I actually, if we've said that, they're not working on another Battlefield currently, and like we've said also that Battlefield 4 was in production at the time of Battlefield 3, so it's been going on and on. Now, if they're not working on a new Battlefield title now, like we say, that means that it's possibly going in a different direction. But I think this could actually be a good move for them, because from a PR perspective and from a sort of marketing perspective, people in the gaming community, especially with these kind of sequel titles, there's always a ton of negativity. Oh, you're just rolling out a new title every year. And it's this kind of thing that gets said all the time now, everywhere. People are always going on about it. Oh, they're just bashing them out, blah, blah, blah. If they take a break and go away, like, for example, look at Grand Theft Auto. Okay, Grand Theft Auto, they take these massive periods in between with nothing going on. But when that game is coming out, it's going to sell big. Okay?
Yeah, it's a good game.
yeah, for sure. But my point is, they have left these long periods in between, and in many ways, that's the best hype tool to make people wait for something they really, really want. Now, Battlefield 3, hugely popular. Battlefield 4, possibly going to be more popular. Now, if they then make people wait 3 years or something, and like you say, they run out a couple of DLCs at the same time, that's going to really, make people's appetites, crazy for the game. Right, guys, Daskro is just going to jump out right now, but we're going to carry on for a few minutes. So thanks for joining us today, Daskro, and we'll see you next time, man.
Yep, see you guys later.
Cheers.
See you.
Bye.
Jack, what do you feel, though, about this idea of them taking a break and sort of leaving Battlefield for a little bit and, maybe focusing on some of the things that they want to focus on, and then coming back to Battlefield after, maybe perhaps a little extended period of time? Do you think that'd be like a positive thing? Do you think the community would actually kind of receive that quite well? In many ways, I think it could, because I think, it'd be a bit of a middle finger to the people going, they're rolling it out every year. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, like, Battlefield 2, the gap between Battlefield 2 and Battlefield 3 seemed huge. It seemed like 10 years. Obviously, I don't think it was 10 years, but I mean, what did we have in between? We had 2142, and then Bad Company, and then Bad Company 2, and then they went with like Battlefield 3, and everyone was like, okay, Battlefield 3 is a proper Battlefield game.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think, that did draw a lot more hype and attention to the game, because all those people that maybe played Battlefield 2 but were like, oh, Bad Company's not a proper Battlefield game, I'm not going to get that. All those people came back, as well as the Bad Company players, and were like, shit, this is a proper Battlefield game. So, I mean, I think, yeah, in a lot of ways, leaving a gap is a good thing because it does create that massive hype. But you've got to think about what they're developing. So, obviously, Mirror's Edge 2, like Brandon said, that's a bit of a cult following. So, you know, that game will sell. It's going to get a lot of new audience as well because of the next-gen consoles. But Battlefront 2, I just think that's just a massive winning formula because, I mean, like I was a massive Star Wars fan when I was a kid. Yeah, I'm sure you guys were as well. A lot of people love Star Wars, a lot of people love Star Trek too, whatever. But combining Battlefield with Star Wars by DICE, I can't really see how that can mess up. Like they've got this awesome engine where they can do
pew laser beams.
Exactly, they've got this massive dynamic engine where they can do all this crazy shit. DICE are good at making multiplayer games, right? Okay, so it's a winning formula because they're going to get all the Star Wars fans as well as the Battlefield fans. And if you look at that from EA's perspective, it's a bit of a cash cow, isn't it?
Free money.
It's a load of free money. Yeah.
Don't bring it down. Yeah. Don't bring it down. We had a beautiful thing right here.
And if they do it right, that means they've just opened up that franchise. So that's a secondary product that DICE will be producing on a rotating side, maybe with the Battlefield franchise.
I mean, the thing is, when this was announced as well, we were all looking at it from a Battlefield 3 perspective because that's what people had when this was announced. You know, we didn't see any of this stuff from, you know, the E3 multiplayer. So everyone was kind of going, oh, imagine it with the, you know, Battlefield from Battlefield 3. It'll be amazing. Now imagine it with the whole evolution thing, the forces dynamics of Frostbite. Man, just imagine what they could do there. It just opens up a whole world of possibilities. Anyway, guys, X Factor's going to step out now. See you next time.
All right, thanks, guys. I'll see you.
Cheers. All right, guys, just going to wrap this up. So I want to say thank you also to JackFrags. Thanks for joining me today, mate.
No problem. It was fun as always. Some good topics that we discussed.
Definitely. So thanks, guys, for listening today. I'll put this out, as always, as a bit of a podcast as well. But on the YouTube video, please drop your thoughts and feedback. Always interested to hear what you guys got to say about all the topics we've come. Battlefield 4, it's on the way. Very, very excited. Jack's excited. I'm excited. We all are. I'll see you next time, guys, for some more Battlefield discussion.